We've gone 7 for 9 in each of the last 3 weeks, so the tips are flying, but let's go through not only those results, but what we learned from them. Here are the 10 talking points from round 8. Let's get into it. Port Adelaide will be really happy with the 3 wins on the trot, as they should be, and you can argue over the competition all you want, but the Dogs played a granny last year. St Kilda are one of the more improved teams in the competition, and yes, they needed the confidence builder over West Coast, and they've got North next week, but, 5 losses in a row, you've got to take what's ahead of you, get the wins on the board, and go from there, which they've done that. I'm really impressed with Todd Marshall. As someone who doesn't get off on hating guys, and I certainly don't hate Todd Marshall, but calling out when someone's out of form is one thing, but if you can't celebrate when that player is then put into form, especially with good habits, which is what he is showing at the moment, then you're a plain dick. So you can call me a hater or a troll if you like, that doesn't really bother me, but credit where it is due, he's turned it around and he's been fantastic in the last 2 weeks, presenting, making his presence known and looking more comfortable at the level. Now, of course, Wines, Boak, Rosie, these guys all played well who have been all year. But I think what was good from Port is guys like Amon, Butters, and these types, Powell Pepper even, although he had some good moments, they had experienced guys that were not good on the weekend and they still got the win. That's the pleasing part. Being in a space where you can have guys maybe not at their best get home and away wins, it wouldn't fly in a final, but Port's inaccuracy, especially towards the latter end of the third quarter and the start of the fourth, this should have been a much bigger win. But at this point, percentage isn't the worry. It's the win-loss tally, and this was a good one for them. And for the Dogs, I know they had a lot out. I know they had a lot out, but this was a disaster, and I don't buy them as a top 8 team at all. Dale Thomas called it on Triple M at the start of the year that they wouldn't make the 8. He got criticised for it, and right now he looks like a genius. They look nowhere near a top 8 side. Some reasons outside of their control, some reasons in their control, and the biggest reason in their control is they lack a soul around the ball, and that's not good enough. Is this harsh on Jason Horne-Francis, Ben Mackay? Probably, but the only thing consistently good for North was their jumper. It is a top-tier jumper in the league, that one. That's outstanding. 20 of the 22 blokes wearing it are fucking peanuts. And that's on North's list management, and dissecting what went wrong is something, I've already done over on the Raw. I'll leave the link in the description if you want to look at how I propose to fix North, which is still relevant now, and what can you do? You need to find out who is good enough not to be just on your list, but who is good enough to be on a list of the top teams, and I think you just need to give VFL guys a chance if they're fully fit. Will Phillips and Tom Powell need to come into this side, for crying out loud, and guys that are not putting up enough, it is not good enough at all, and the message needs to be sent. Jaden Stevenson has had a horrible month. Send him back to the VFL, and don't bring him back in until he's had 30 and kick 3. And if that takes all year, stuff him. Get the young guys in. I know you've given this up. What you gave up for Callum Coleman-Jones was a crime. And Richmond fans are partying right now because his production has been less than nothing. But instead of sitting on that, either play him for the year and see how it goes, or do what you can to get more draft picks into the door, because you're not enticing veterans and you're not enticing superstars to come and help your culture. So if you're going to rebuild through the draft, you've got to get rid of more and stop bringing in anyone that is not worth an absolute first-round pick. And given the fact that North's first-round pick is going to be 1, 2, or 3, no one. There is no one that's going to want to come to North for that pick. So hold that, try to get more in the door, and go again, because this is borderline a disgrace at this point. West Coast have had COVID, and they're morons. I get that. We know Port have had a slow start, but they're kicking back into it. Gold Coast was spectacular on the weekend. Adelaide, they've had a poor fortnight, but they're where they are, and Hawthorn have shown good signs. North haven't shown a thing at all. And the fact that your best player and the heart and soul of your jumper is an 18-year-old kid is both a credit to Jason Horne-Francis and a wake-up call for North Melbourne. I know everyone wants to talk about Dusty and Tom Lynch, and whilst that's absolutely justified, everyone's talking about those guys, and me repeating it verbatim is just not really the point, and I don't think it's going to do you guys any favours. Now, I lobbied pretty hard for Jack Graham to be Richmond's next captain, and whilst his early season form suggests that that was the wrong call by me, I still don't agree with the co-captaincy bit, but I really enjoyed Jack Graham getting back into some prime form. 30 disposals and a litany of stats, as you can see there on the screen, was an outstanding day for him, and I think Richmond are finally figuring out just how even the contribution needs to be across their midfield, and the balance is looking better and better and better per week. Of course, they're going to get the boost from Dusty, Shea Bolton, and Morris Rioli Jr., who is outstanding. It is the nitty-gritty and the dirty stuff, if you will, that is going to get Richmond over the line. They are now in the 8. I suspect they'll stay there for the rest of the year, and no one is going to want to play them in a final. Tom Lynch has kicked 13 goals in the last 2 weeks, and he's got a very out-of-form Sam Frost to come next week, so he should fill up again. The Tigers are in really good shape, and for the Pies, whether you love him or hate him, Kane Corns is 100% correct, and I predicted it correctly as well. You've actually got to defend your opponent. 18 disposals and 5 goals, 1.5. That's Tony Lockett style in the 80s. Not good enough, Darcy Moore. Not good enough, Jeremy Howe. And yes, Jordan Roughhead wasn't there, I know, but 900 grand a year to give your opponent 15 metres of space and to outrun you when he's sitting on the ground. Not good enough. Although, I really did like the Pies fight, and forward of centre, they are looking more and more dangerous. And a shout out to Darcy Cameron as well. He was a bargain pickup for the Pies, and whilst this he's not good enough to sort of challenge Brodie Grundy, of course, and he's not really a tall forward, now that Grundy's out for a bit, I think he's been genuinely outstanding, and with Aiden Begg coming along, could Darcy go to a third club and make an impact? Personally, I think yes, but the impact he had on Saturday was a very good one. Gold Coast have beaten Sydney 3 of the last 4 times they've played. It really is, like the title said, the weirdest bunny bogey team in the league, and I can't really explain it. Now, you could say that Sydney just couldn't hit a target in the corridor in the last quarter, and whilst I agree with that, Gold Coast did play better for longer. Don't get that confused or misconstrued. They just did. They were the better side on the day. Now, if this was an NBA best of 3, best of 5, best of 7 series, of course the Swans would take it out. And why we love footy is these one-off games are just fantastic and can throw up weird results. And they didn't even need Touk Miller being one of the best players on the ground. You had Fiorini, you had Swallow, Isaac Rankin was good, even though, again, I've been a critic of his, but when he's played well, I'm going to give him all the plaudits. Brandon Ellis showed some class at important times as well, and Levi Casbolt up forward with no Ben King, I think it's been a really good pickup. I don't think he's been the pickup of the year, like the AFL website suggested, but he's exceeded expectations, which all you can ask for with your bargain pickups. I think he's been really good. This is a fantastic win for the Suns and a confidence booster. What does it mean for the entirety of their year? Who knows? But enjoy the win now. Don't let it get ahead of you and keep attacking games with that amount of vigour, and we'll see what happens. We're learning more and more about them every week. And for the Swans, I'm hanging on by a thread because the effort and the lackadaisical nature of some of their young guys late in games is really starting to get on my nerves. Their best is a premiership contender, but their worst is a bottom 6 team. That's dangerous because when you rock up to a final and you don't know which version of your team is going to show up, you're not going to win a flag. It's that simple. They've got plenty of time to fix it, and I believe that they will, but this simply was not good enough, and some senior guys, Callum Mills, Luke Parker, Isaac Heaney, didn't stand up when they absolutely should have. Every team gets a mulligan, I understand that, but there are some worrying signs here for the Swans. Their biggest lack right now is emotional maturity. But it was good to see Paddy McCartan back after that head knock. He looked okay. He did miss a target late, but he had 6 more senior experienced players miss a target the same, so we can't hang it on him. It was good to see him back. But most of all, a bloody fantastic win for the Suns. Whether Clarko is the next coach, Leon Cameron turns it around, or they go down a different path, whether it's an Adam Uze, a Daniel G. and Syracuse, an Adam Kingsley, a Ashley Hansen, a Jamie Graham, whoever they go for the Giants next year, they're not the ones under pressure, although the media will tell you that they are. It's, again, their list management. They have topped up their midfield in ways that doesn't make sense considering forward of the ball, they look genuinely shot. Now, if they were in a position where they had a really good number 1 key forward, I would put Harry Himmelberg on the trade table straight away and see if a club will overpay for him. However, Jesse Hogan hasn't got the consistency to be the number 1 man as of yet, and it's unlikely that the Giants are going to get a pick where they're going to get the best key forward in the draft. Now, there are a couple of good ones going around. Tom Scully, not that one, but it works for the Giants. Or Harry Lemmy, both of those. One of them might be around their pick to get in, which would be a really, really good sign. However, it doesn't really work for the now. But if the coach coming in is okay with doing a mini rebuild, Taranto needs to accept an offer. I think the Giants are thinking that he just needs to go. It's nothing against Taranto, but they need to get a midfield cohesion that works. And if free agency is in the way of that, then Taranto just needs to go. They need to keep Tom Green in the building, but Kelly and Cornelio can't really go anywhere. So if I was Victorian clubs, I'd be going to Jacob Hopper going, you can be our number one banana now. Whether that's a Hawthorn, I'm not being biased here, but they can give that a go. But there are definitely Victorian clubs that would be looking at him, and he would be the midfielder to go after as well. Lockie Ash is being used out of position. If teams need a rebounding halfback flanker, they can have a look at him as well. But the list manager at GWS needs a plan, and that plan is change. What that change is almost isn't as important as the fact that change needs to happen. Again, I'm not saying get rid of everyone, but moves are going to need to be made, because currently they're not bad enough to be a bottom 6 team and to get really, really good draft picks, and they're nowhere near being a top 6 team with the group and the heart and the soul that they're putting in at the moment. So where they are is fucking nowhere, and where they need to be is somewhere. And being bad, the positive of being bad is if you back in your development, you get the good kids. Of course, the positive of being top 6 is you're contending. When you're not either, you're stuck. And are they going to be stuck for the rest of the year? Are they going to be stuck for 2, 3, 4 years? Who knows? But it's not up to the coach to fix that. It's up to list management, and they better get it right. For the Cats, look, they just dominated for most of the game. Jeremy Cameron was really good. Tyson Stengel, I'm not sure I'd have him in my All-Australian team like some suggested, but what a pickup he's been again. Exceeded expectations, which is all you can ask for. And I thought they looked really settled down back, but my God, this was a bad loss considering Mark Blitzarves and Sam DeConning did the ruck work with no Stanley, no John Segler, no Toby Conway, no Shannon Neal. They had no ruckman, the Cats, and they dominated. It's not good enough, GWS. Not even close. As a Hawthorn fan, this hurt, but let's give the Bombers their credit. 25 points down halfway through the third quarter. They could have keeled over like they would have done in previous weeks. However, they got over the line. Now, if you take Jordan Ridley out of their outs list, they didn't really lose a lot in terms of A-grade talent, and they did bring good guys in, but that disruption basically meant the Bombers had to go, boys, just do your thing and go for it. And what they did is move the ball forward really well. Even in the first half, they did it really well. They just kept missing a few targets, and the Hawks kept them in the game by kicking inaccurately. But at the end of the day, for that 40-minute period, the Bombers look like what they want to be. Not what they were last year, what they want to be going forward. And Peter Wright was the man. He kicked 6. Sam Frost is having a nightmare of a month right now. But he is one of the purest set shot goal kickers in the league. He hits them from everywhere. And even on the run when he nudged Sam Frost out of the way, 100% legally, I might add, that finish from 50 was more impressive, I think, than any other goal he kicked on the night. And at the time, I was wondering why Essendon picked up Ben Hobbs. Did they really need another inside midfielder? You can't teach that level of footy IQ that kid's got. The Bombers are onto a winner. They've done well there. Is it a catapult for the rest of their season? I don't know, because the Hawks aren't that good, but they've been good. But at the end of the day, let's celebrate, and Essendon fans absolutely should, a really, really good win. A win for the ages or one of the best in modern times? No. But a good one, and now every coach that has coached in the league has had a win, except for Paul Matty Knights. But for the Hawks, Tom Mitchell and Jimmy Warple had 29 touches between them from 34 centre bounce attendances. Yes, I know, Brisbane played West Coast, so what do we take away from it? At the end of the day, you got to get your fill up. There are always going to be bad teams. We didn't give Brisbane in 01 to 03 shit when they played teams like Hawthorn. They got their fill up, they got the confidence boost, and they're away. And this Brisbane team is exactly the same. When Geelong beat Richmond at Telstra Dome in 2007 by fuck knows how much, it wasn't they were supposed to do that. We were in awe of what they did. Now, whilst Brisbane weren't absolutely at their best, and I thought West Coast did put up a bit of a fight, and I'll touch on them in a sec, for Hugh McCluggage to have that performance is genuinely nuts. That is an amazing game from a guy who's gone from a wing to more of an inside mid. He's starting to become a player I might be annoyed at if he was named on a wing in an All-Australian team, for example, but that's not what we're here to talk about. That is a fantastic performance. Brisbane got a really good percentage booster, and for the Eagles, my level of sympathy, like Adam Simpson's, is out the window. Jackson Nelson and Josh Rotham, you're morons. have a bonfire at your house, be around people. A nightclub that packed with COVID as packed in like sardines is ridiculously stupid. You know, I worked in hospitality for 6 years. Like, the sacrifices we had to make socially for 60 grand a year was, I thought at the time, kind of harsh at times. You're getting paid 5 times that, roundabout. So yeah, don't go to a nightclub. It really isn't that hard. Socialise with your teammates. The year has gone to shit. Stick together. Hang out, have a beer, figure out how you're going to fix this. Yes, you deserve a social life. You could have gone out to a restaurant for dinner. There were other options. I'm not saying don't be robots, but that was an incorrect decision, and I have no sympathy for the punishments that are coming. It's as simple as that. You can agree, you can disagree, that's fine. Comment below, let me know. That's where I stand. You don't need to agree with me with everything that I say. That's my stance. They're morons, and I don't like what they did, but for Brisbane, like what they did, they're ticking on. Melbourne, Brisbane, daylight, and then everyone else. So, any chance we could just get Melbourne and Brisbane to play a best of 15 for the rest of the year? Yeah, this is ridiculous now. It doesn't look like Melbourne are going to lose too many games for the year. I'd be shocked if they lost 4, but the question does need to be asked, what year are they going to make this? Is this going to be an Essendon-style situation? They lost a game for the year, but they still, not managed guys, but they still made sure that they were as fit as they could be going into that final series, dominating and no one could get near them? Or is this going to be like in 2008 when Geelong lost to Collingwood in round 9 and didn't lose another game for the rest of the year until the Hawks got over the line in the grand final? The reason why those distinctions are important, I believe, is that Essendon lost their game in round 21, Geelong lost their game in round 9. The difference between those is Essendon got a reality check before finals, whilst Geelong were convincing themselves that what they were doing was always going to work throughout the rest of the year. You've got guys like Cameron Mooney, who's spoken about they took guys with injuries into that grand final because they didn't want to mess with the cohesion of the group that was already established in their 15 wins in a row, or 16 wins in a row, however many that it was. Yet for Essendon, they had that loss late. They needed to reevaluate a few things and use their talent to tinker their game slightly and dominate the rest of the year. If Melbourne are like 17 or 18 and 0 or 17 and 18 and 1, I'm not saying rest the whole group, but maybe a guy managed here, a guy managed there. I think the least amount of players that play 22 games, but the more players that can play 16 to 20, the better off the Ds are going to be. They went to another gear in that second quarter, and St Kilda couldn't keep up. And I don't blame the Saints at all. They weren't terrible at any point in this game. Yes, there were times where Melbourne just picked up the momentum and St Kilda looked like they were a bit behind, but so have every other team this year. I don't think St Kilda fans should be too disappointed with this result. They showed a lot of ticker. But when you get a B+ or an A- in school, that's a great result. But if the guy next to you gets A++, you're going to feel like you failed. You didn't fail, St Kilda. You were beaten by better, and you've got plenty of time to keep the improvements coming as you see fit. Plus 14 in contested ball, 11 in uncontested ball, 25 in inside 50s, and 14 in clearances. That's quantity for you, and that's what the Blues are doing. They are bullying teams into submission and making them crack. Now, when Carlton were, now admittedly nowhere near as good a team on paper as this, but even when they were struggling 2, 3, 4 years ago, they would dick around with the footy and make sure they had the perfect entries. They've got a forward line now with McKay and Curnow being fully fit and firing, that just getting the ball in there and locking it in their forward half is the way to go. And I know what all the Carlton fans are thinking, and it was the bottom of this title. It's about time. Unless you are the best kicking team we have ever seen, just take the territory and figure it out from there. You can fake it till you make it inside forward 50 and then develop strategies to lock the ball in and get scores. And Carlton are doing that, and that's what's pleasing. Carlton fans should be really excited by the fact that not only are you getting the ball first, but your instincts are to get the ball forward, lock it in the front half, do this, do that. Carlton aren't tackling as much as their opponents, which is fine. They're not intercept marking as much as their opponents. It's because the midfielders and the half forwards are not letting the ball come out in transition and be hurt. It happened to them against Freo, kind of humbling. Gold Coast did it to them. But very early in this game, you could tell there was no way Adelaide was going to do this to them. And this was a really mature win, considering that danger game was thrown around quite a bit by people coming into this one. They just snuffed the Crows out. And for the Crows, Jordan Dawson's best game for the Crows. Yes, I am including the showdown in this. I think it was his best all-round four-quarter performance for the Crows. Was the bounty for him worth it? I'd argue that after the showdown kick, it absolutely was. But he was outstanding, and the Crows, yeah, they've had a poor fortnight. This is about where they're at, but they need to continue to build and grow, which I'm betting them to do. But the Blues, they were simply outstanding. Now, I'm going to make this one as short, sharp, and succinct as I can. And if you're the type of person that is not abusing umpires at a junior or a grassroots level, and you would call it out if you heard it from the crowd, cool. This little bit isn't for you. Skip forward a little bit, and we can go from there. But for those of you that are doing it and having been at reserves, senior footy on the weekend, it is still prevalent. And the funny thing is that even at these grassroots levels, we're not having a go at players because that's ridiculous for some reason. But umpires, some of them volunteers, are copping it because you need a power trip, because your live sucks so much you need to take it out on someone with a whistle that's affecting a game in which it isn't professional. This umpire dossier about female umpires is extremely prevalent, and before you think that this is a gender thing, no. Let's make it a personal thing. Because for all the morons out there that are taking out their frustrations, and even to the people, whether these are already their officials, fans, or whoever, are taking out some really fucked up sexual desires on these people that absolutely did not ask for it and absolutely do not deserve it. If that's really where you're at in life, and you're watching this right now, and what I'm saying is offending you because what I'm saying is true about you, unsubscribe. I don't really care if you don't watch me again, because you're a piece of shit for doing it. This is a prevalent problem. We need to stop doing it. And if you're still thinking, okay, Daz, you've gone a bit strong there, like I agree with you, we shouldn't do it, but does it really need to get to that? Well, yeah, it does get to that. We need to protect people. Now, in this case, female umpires have come forward and shared their stories. We need to protect them because anyone, male, female, to feel like that is simply not good enough in an environment where not only are they not financially compensated to deal with it, money doesn't make that behavior okay in the first place anyway. We are 6,000 umpires short, and it is not a player problem, it is a fan problem. I am fully convinced that Travis Boak is aging like wine at the moment. This is ridiculous just how good this man is at playing footy, and Jack McRae was the best for the Doggies. Andy Brayshaw fully cementing himself in the top 5 with a 3-vote performance, and oh boy, didn't he deserve it. Tom Lynch, he should have 6 votes in the last 2 weeks. You can't kick 13 goals in 2 games and not get recognised by the umpires, because for crying out loud, bags of goals make the game better and make the umpire's job easier, because it's really noticeable when a guy has kicked a bag. I'm really happy that David Swallow got the 3. He is a workhorse, and people have actually said that he might be a little bit of a draft bust. I don't subscribe to that at all. I think he's been a wonderful servant for the Gold Coast Suns, and a best on-ground performance was an exclamation point on a fantastic performance. I thought Mark Blitzarves, and so did the numbers, was genuinely outstanding. The fact that they didn't really have a recognised ruckman, and he took down Bruce and Flynn and looked dangerous with the ball in the air, is a credit to him. And a credit to the Cats as well. Peter Wright gets noticed for his 6 goals. John Newcombe was set to play one of the best games a Hawthorn player has played since probably Tom Mitchell in 2018. He was quieter in the second half, and Darcy Parish found it a lot, as we know. Hugh McCluggage, we talked about his huge game. He picked up the 3 votes in that game. And the Eagles, they didn't have a lot of positives on the night, but good to see that they got in the votes there. Lockie Neal with 2. We'll show the leaderboard in a minute, but he is coming up flying. For the D, speaking of guys that can win the Brownlow, Clayton Oliver, oh boy. Ed Langdon picks up the 2. I've got no idea why Daniel McKenzie didn't run with him all day. Finn McGuinness did it to great effect the week before, and the Hawks almost stole the most improbable of victories, but Ed gets the 2. Gorn not in the votes for the first time in a while, which is all the more scary considering how good Melbourne were. Charlie Curnow took the 3 off Paddy Cripps, who's on 2 there, but Charlie was genuinely outstanding, as were the Blues. Let's get to the leaderboard now. I think that only these 5 players can win it from here, with Cripps out the front, but Brayshaw and Oliver there Who out of those two do you think is going to poll more in the Brownlow? Can't wait for you to tell me. Comment below, let me know. I know this has been a bit longer than a couple of the other reviews, but this was a really good weekend of footy to talk about, I believe. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it already. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Hope I can see you for the tips video for round 9. Goodbye.